Well, hello there, and welcome back to the channel. Here we are on Tuesday, August the 13th, 2024. Today we're going to talk about the state of the game of bowling. It's a sport that is very personal for me. Being short and on the smaller side, most of my childhood, I went into bowling as my primary sport. That and running, I did a lot until I got a little bigger when I was you know after high school and college. Um, Bowling was my favorite sport, and it really is the one I'm probably the most technically literate in when you're speaking as a coach. That's what this channel's about. So the game has changed a lot. In actuality, different injuries that I've had. I retired at the age of 30 back in 2000. I was getting ready to get married anyway. Um, I had a lot going on. Father died in 1999, so I had a lot going on, a lot to manage. And I did hurt my back really badly. Um, my middle back. So that was my second back injury. And after a certain number of years, I mean, it all gets better. You put a little muscle around it, and it works. So I'm thinking about coming back again, but I've stayed close to the game, at least as a spectator or also as a coach, for several years now. So I do coach in Special Olympics, but I can give out lessons to just about anybody. And at my peak, I was in the two teens as an average. Um, I came within 7 pins of my 800 series, which I never seemed to get. And back then, the 800 series was putting some crooked numbers up. Now with the new equipment, there's a lot of people scoring. Um, they've made it a lot easier, for power of the condition, and that's very similar to how golf is. You got these, really, these guys aren't all that strong. They're able to drive the ball 20, 30, 40 yards longer because of the new technology that's out there. So bowling is very similar. You used to have to do something with the ball. A lot of fingers, a lot of rotation. You used to have to really manage. You used to have to really be a lot more accurate to score. Um, so I had one perfect game. I want to get a couple more, and I would like to juice up the. I'd like to reconstitute a not a shrine per se, although it would have been that was what I was on the road towards. But I lost a lot of my awards for high school and college, including my 300 ring, um, were thrown away by a family member. That's a very sad thing for me. So I'm thinking about coming back and putting the trophy case together. Um, Maybe I'm being 54. I'm allowed to be in the senior events. Bastards. I tell my son all the time, 60, 60 is where you start feeling old. And then I think to myself, when I'm 59, we'll change that. We'll make that 70. I ain't going out without a fight. So this is more about what's going on in the game. The game is inhabited by people who are worshiping either speed or rev rate. And that's particularly the male side. Okay. As usual, the female side of most of your sports are where fundamentals are played best. And the guys are out basically strong arming the condition or strong arming the competition, whatever the sport is, whether it's basketball, bowling, whatever it is. If it's unisex, you see the women are out there with better fundamentals. So these guys are doing rev rate and everything else. What I learned early on when I was a two-time conference first team first team all conference person, bowler in college, in junior college. And both of my coaches, I had a coach my first year and a different coach the second year, both of them had been on Team USA. And best advice I ever gotten, they said if you try to make the, you know how a board is an inch wide. So you're trying to carry, if you're trying to cover, you hook it out and hook it back, and you're trying to cover 20, 30 boards. Your game doesn't travel. So you don't do what you can do well in one house. Another house has a different condition, or the boards are different. They have more wear, less wear. The amount of oil, how many times they've stripped the oil off. Do they just kind of leave a dirty condition down? All that stuff. So you go from one house to another, to another, to another. You don't know where the ball's going to go. You don't know how well that ball's going to, how well your game's going to travel. So they both said, if you can keep that to 10 to 15 boards, total break, you can score on any condition. Now, being that I'm turning into a geezer, the very beginning parts of it, this will serve me well. It's discipline over these guys that are flying open all the time. One of the truisms in the game of bowling is that for every open frame you have to double. You have to throw a double strikes wise. You run out of frames. You get 3 opens in a game because you don't know where the ball's going. That means you got to double 3 different times, or you have to throw 4 in a row. When you throw 4 in a row and you don't hit 200, get out and practice your spares. Get accurate. And that first shot's critical because, like, if you're leaving really complex spares, you're going to chop a lot of them, especially in your torque machine, and you're throwing the ball over a lot of boards. So what we used to do, and you can still do this, is when you throw a spare across the lane, you throw it cross lane, so the 7 or the 10, and you walk right at it, and you take your wrist and you break it down, and you leave it in that. Okay, and it takes a little bit of strength because you got to make sure you don't drop the ball right on the line, because then it might head right. You got to get the ball out of the lane, but you break the wrist, and the rotation is pure skid. Skids before it turns. If it's pure skid, it won't be able to move in time. So it's an easier way to make your spares. Your interior spares, you make them off a strike shot. Those kinds of fundamentals, they're dying. You don't see them as much. Everybody's like, I threw 7 strikes in this game or whatever, because it's more of a power-oriented game. And I believe, coming back, that if you marry discipline to just enough power, you could probably average, between 200 and 220, 225, something like that. Because some of the guys are out there throwing up some nice numbers. The fact that I'm older now, not as strong, I'm working out now, but I'm not as strong, but I'm also not as much of a hothead. So it kind of works its way out. So can I be in the 2 teens, maybe top out in the early 220s? Sure, I think I can. Will I get there right away? Probably not. I won't be ready to start again until probably right after Christmas, and I'll probably go in because my goal really is to get my pro card. You got to throw 36 games, 3 games a night, obviously. 36 game record up there of 200 or better as far as an average, and then you can get your pro card, and that is one of my bucket list items. So can I do it in the first year? Who knows? I'm gonna try, but I probably won't be ready for leagues this next month. I'm still working on the shoulder, and it ain't responding that great. But I'm hoping by January or so I can go into the bowling alleys or call the bowling alleys and say, hey, anybody needs a reasonably decent sub, and if I can cover 12 shifts, I book myself my average, and we'll see if I can do it on the cheap that way, as far as the number of games I throw. If not, I go and I try to establish the average in the 25 to 26 season that usually goes from September to April or May. I'll just go as long as it takes. Get into some competitions. So when I talk about, I say all that because I kind of have a lot to say about the sport. And when I was bowling, like I said, you had to put a lot on it. Now, the women's game, different than the men's game now, very much so. It's doing very, very well. But when I started in youth leagues, they had the same problem they have now, but it's worse now. It's bad mechanics. So you didn't have people teaching them the proper mechanics. So what's going on now is these kids are learning to throw two-handed, and the problem is, because we serve at the altar of rev rate, which is asinine. So you got these 8, 9, 10-year-olds, 12-year-olds, 13, 14-year-olds, and you sit there and go, okay, throw me 5 or 6 shots, and all 6 of them hit a different board. They have no idea where the ball's going. I'm a fervent believer that if you're going to go to what I consider cheating, I think two-handed is literally cheating, because you can't move the fences out like baseball. You change the technology, you change all this stuff, you make these ridiculous rev rates. You can't move the pins back further. You can't do anything to retard that advantage, right? So I think two-handed should be illegal, but as long as it is legal, you shouldn't be teaching the little kids this. And the reason is because you have to learn rhythm. I was doing a lesson on Sunday with an adult, okay? And that person is a pretty decent bowler. And this guy didn't have the balance that he needed. It's not being taught. He's a one-handed bowler, which is good. I won't coach a two-handed. But you're literally going up there like the Hunchback of Notre Dame. It not just that it's not aesthetically pleasing, it's also just, it's one of the most unathletic things I've ever seen. But you still have to have rhythm. You still have to have rhythm. And if you don't learn that rhythm as an athlete, you should be doing multiple sports anyway. You need to learn rhythm. You need to learn cadence. Cadence is a big one. So when you're if you're under 6 foot, you're probably doing a 5-step approach. If you're over 6 foot, you're probably doing a 4-step approach. It's because of the leg size, the size of your legs and everything else. So you're doing a 5 or a 4. All of those steps need to have an equal cadence to them. Not, as I see it all the time. But it needs to be boom, 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 slide. I am vehemently against, and I hate this in the game, and the two-handers do it a lot, coming to a stop while that ball's still moving through your arm swing. The torque that creates on the elbow, the wrist, the shoulder, just depends on your timing. And that's if your timing is perfect. You're still throwing torque. You're putting torque into into parts of your arm you really shouldn't be doing it to. And that's what a lot of these two-handers are doing. Okay? Hard to be accurate also. They don't have the rhythm. They don't have the rhythm to do this. Okay? Once you have the rhythm, then yeah, go ahead and try it. You want to look like a circus sideshow freak, and I don't care what you do. It shouldn't be legal, but who cares? I don't make the rules. I'm just a wee Indian. I'm not a chieftain. So, it is what it is. But we're teaching that, and we're not teaching spares. So we're teaching these guys, you got to go throw 7 or 8 strikes a game, so you can average 200. It's just idiocy. So that's what's going on. That's what's going wrong in youth bowling quite a bit, and it's really bothering me a lot. They also aren't, when they do a practice, they're not doing drills. They're just not doing drills. And it's stupid. I mean, what if you claim something to be a sport? You really do need to drill it. So there's drills you do at the line. There's a 3-stepper. There's a 2-stepper. There's a just stand there and work on your release, where you don't care where the ball's going. There's a corner. It's a corner spare shooter thing, where you literally, because you go in there and you have to keep score because that's how they meter the game, and you go, okay, I want to hit exactly 20. First shot I pick off the 7. Second shot I pick off the 10, and only the 10, only the 7. The perfect score is 20, not more. And that's the challenge. I want to be able to be so accurate that I don't hit the 6 when I throw for the 10. I don't hit the 4 when I go for the 7. Because that makes you an even better spare shooter. And it's a lot of this is just that repetition is muscle memory. Then when you get into tight spots and you're nervous, your muscle memory takes over. It's not as hard to get yourself into a rhythm. It's not as hard to get yourself going when you are maybe even slightly out of your element, or temperature's a little different. Whatever, you're able to just go right back to your training. That's very helpful in any sport, but particularly one where you're swinging a 15 or 16 pound ball, because that's not normal, unless you're a freaking Viking, and you're probably not. So the drills are very important. What's also important that's not happening in youth leagues is warm-up. Nobody's doing any stretches. They act like it's not a sport. It actually is. To do it at a high level is very difficult. So that's where the youth leagues are. The high schools, there aren't enough teams. Most of you can't get a district, you can't get like a high school district together. You can maybe, if there's 20 or 30, for every 20 or 30 high schools or whatever in an area. We're in York County, Pennsylvania, so we're in a commonwealth, so the school systems, it's not county based like it is in some states. It's literally you'll have a high school, a middle school, and a couple of elementary schools in one little area in a township, and that's your school system. So you have like 30 school systems in or so in York County. So we don't have a lot of these teams. There's maybe 1 or 2 in the whole, maybe 3 in the whole freaking county. So the game needs to be built from the bottom up a lot better than it is. A lot better than it is. And there's a difficulty. Now part of that is the scholarship money going up into college. It isn't much. So that may be a reason why you don't see a lot of interscholastic high school competitions, because the athletes will go over into other sports, and that's completely understandable. But there are kids out there that would like to be on some of these programs, and they just don't have either the coaches or the programs available to them. So they've got to really recruit at the bottom levels and move it back up and rebuild the sport, as far as I'm concerned. And the PBA, Professional Bowlers Association, talks about a future for the sport. It ain't looking good. It ain't looking good because you're rotting from the bottom, and they're not teaching the fundamentals very well at all. All right, so then you get into college. College is pretty robust. It used to be more of an East Coast or I'd say east of the Mississippi, because you had some schools in Illinois, you had some Kentucky, Tennessee, but a lot of it was on the eastern seaboard. New Jersey had phenomenal teams back when I was in it. So you had junior college, but you also have 4-year schools. Very little scholarship money then, and very little scholarship money now, but the perennial powers are east of the Mississippi. There are some teams west of the Mississippi now, getting out in the Denver area, so it is expanding to some degree, but it's really an East Coast phenomenon. And quite frankly, even in the professional ranks, most of your events are east of the Mississippi, and most of them are in the Midwest, Wisconsin, Michigan, Illinois, right? So a little bit of Pennsylvania, not much. Maybe upstate New York. So the game is becoming regional. In the college ranks, it's a little more diverse, a lot more of the states. However, it feeds into a professional ranks that now, whether it be the PBA or the PBA 50, which is the senior tour, or the PBA regionals, it's become regional. So the regionals, you've got different parts of the country. That's great, right? But the PBA and the PBA 50, they've really become really regional. And that's because of what's going on with the colleges. So the college game has become a lot. It's not really a national thing. It's really a regional thing. If there was such a thing as between regional and national, that would be that, because it's about half the country in real estate wise. Okay, the eastern half of the country. So you get it up into the professional, and I love the fact that you've got the PBA 50. So us geezers have a place to play. You got to average 200 to get into the pros, and that's fine. And the PBA regional concept is very good, very good. The sponsorships are very direct. A lot of the pro shops are pumping money into the home events, things of that nature. So that works out. But what I don't like on the tour is the way they market it. What the women do very well is social media. They tell a story. It's very individual. A lot of the women players, they have really beautiful personalities that are built for social media. There's lots of antics. They're very calm. They're very nice. And they're very giving of their time. Whether people come in that have disabilities or youth bowlers or whatever. When they go into the pro-ams, they don't act like they're doing you a favor. They love spending time with the athletes. With the amateurs. The men's tour is mostly that they care about that. I'm not going to say they don't care, but they don't market it on social media as well, so you're not reaching the kids. And they've made a cartoon out of it. So where I come from, you don't have to have a name for the condition. You just go, okay, this is a long, this is a short, this is a taper, this is a flare. I don't need to call it a jaguar. What? This isn't it. Okay, it's like anime. It's like bowling crossed with anime. And while there's a market for that, no. Stop it. Make it a serious sport. That's not turning it into a cartoon, an anime freaking. What are you going to do? Things in slow motion from now? You're going to start like doing the highlights in slow motion? Just weird. And then, while Baker format's really cool in college. Do we need that stuff in high school? I mean, in the pros? No. Do we need bowling leagues in pros? No. We don't need any of that stuff. We need more events for single bowlers. What I do like is the PBA and the PWBA cross pollinating a little bit, where they'll have a couple, 2, 3, 4 events a year perhaps, where the bowlers can bowl together. Maybe it's doubles. Maybe it's a mixed doubles tournament. That'd be pretty. That stuff does happen, but do more of it. Get rid of the Baker stuff, which is where you get a team, each bowling 2 frames, in succession. Because that's a staple of college bowling, and that's pretty exciting. But don't do that. You need to sell individuals, not teams, when you're in the professional ranks. So you get somebody like won't even mention names, but there are a lot of women from all over the world who've come to this country to bowl. They're just They're really good. They do a lot of bowling clinics all over the world. Sometimes they're as far away as Australia or England or Germany or wherever, and that's really where they make their money. Sometimes their equipment contracts will mandate that they have to do a certain number of them. And some of them, they just do them, and that's where they get their money from. Who cares? That's a great model. And sometimes the men and the women do them together, which is fantastic. So that much is good. But the marketing in the men's game is just cartoonish. It's cartoonish. It should have, like golf, for example. It has all the equipment. Everything is made. Everything just ridiculous amount of yardage and everything else. But it still has its grace and its the basic feel of a golf tournament, the genteel nature of it, the professional nature of it. It's buttoned up, it's serious, right? It maintained that, even though guys are hitting the ball, barely making contact and hitting the ball 300 yards. But they still look like a serious sport. The men's professional tour just looks like a bunch of freaking idiots. I'm not saying the bowlers are. You get guys like E.J. Tackett. That guy's ridiculous. He's a very good bowler. Very good. And he can be good for many, many years. And a lot of these guys are really good. But you're made to look like a clown. The way the shows come off, the formats, and everything else. And no, you're not getting the young bowler any better by doing that. You're just not. Baseball's making the same mistakes. It's the sports that think if I change how everything looks and make it cartoonish, all the little kids will come out. When I was younger, I went to professional tournaments. Plenty of little kids there. Plenty of them. Didn't matter. These are their heroes. It's hero worship. This is somebody I want to be like. I don't want to be like an anime character. I don't want my kids to want to be an anime character. It's just ridiculous. So let's get back to basics and just win tournaments. It's just stupid. I'm sick of it. PWBA is a little different. They sell the individuals very, very well. I follow a few of them on Instagram, and they're so pleasant. There's a pack of them that kind of get along, and they're very generous with their time. But they bowl fundamentally much better. They don't, if you watch them bowl, obviously they don't have the rev rates that the men have, but they're doing all right too. They've got their power players. But it is a game that's a little bit more finesse, at least enough so that it hasn't gotten cartoonish. But they use Bowl TV to follow all the way through, and they put it on social media to follow all the way through the qualifying and everything else, and then the show. There's a step-ladder final and everything like they're supposed to be, and it really brings you into the process, and it's all very buttoned up. Format's tight. It's about the competition. It's not about, I'm on saber-toothed tiger condition. Tomorrow we're going to bowl on jackhole condition. I mean, what? Wake up. No, stop it. It's more of a serious sport for them, and I love what I see there, and it's really what the men's tournaments really need to start looking at, and that's maybe a very similar marketing strategy where you're marketing the individuals, because there's some really cool stories out there. You're just not hearing about them because they're too busy making a clown show of the whole thing. And that's sad to me. It's a great sport. It's a game of inches. I'll say that the hardest thing in sports is to hit a 95 to 100 mile an hour fastball in baseball. That's got to be the hardest thing there is. But one of the top 5 hardest is to be able to throw a 16-pound rock the exact right speed, the exact right place on the lane, 12 straight times. Get a 300 game. That is one of the hardest things there is. That is not easy at all. The equipment makes it a little easier. There's more 300 games. But it's not easy. It's a very small percentage of bowlers ever throw a perfect game, let alone an 800 series. If you know anything about bowling, you don't get to miss too many times and shoot 800. You're literally striking all but maybe 3 or 4 shots. Maybe 5. Out of 36 frames. I mean, 36 possible strikes you need. 30 frames, right? You ain't missing many times. And I think that's, we want to get back to me, we want to get back to the basics of this thing and what makes it a good sport. And that is, just quit the idiocy about things. Standardize things. Have 2 or 3, maybe 4 very difficult conditions. And just get to where you're individualizing this thing. Tell the stories. And really get out and sell the sport again. Right? Now, you look at sponsors. I'm almost done here. We're at 31 minutes. I like to talk. Anyway, that's why I got myself a channel. You can't do anything about it this time either. But with the sponsorship money, really, you're seeing the corporations that are supporting the game have condensed and collapsed into a very small number of organizations. The money is a lot smaller than it could have been by now. So I think they have to expand. They have to expand the corporate ownership of the sport, right? Raise more money. Maybe look at private equity to come in on some of these companies like Brunswick. Hammer used to be owned by itself, just by itself. I believe Brunswick now owns that. Storm. There's different ball manufacturers, but you'll find a lot of them are owned by the same 2 or 3 companies. You want to have innovation. You want to have more companies coming to the table. Get private equity to invest in this space, and there'll be more money there. And then the more innovation, the more companies there, the more they can afford to put prize money up. Then you're expanding the pot. When you build it, they will come. And that's what it is. Get that sponsorship money up. You got to build this from the bottom, just as much as you build it from the top. You got to build the abilities of the kids, build it the correct way. From the top, you got to put money in the sport. Coca-Cola used to be such a huge sponsor of youth bowling. All kinds of college tuition money. You'd go to the Coca-Cola Nationals. You could actually get qualify for $1,000, $2,000, $5,000, whatever, towards your college. And there's a little bit of that now, but I don't even know if Coca-Cola is part of it anymore. So you can go to some of these really large companies that waste more money than bowling actually has, and bring them back to the sport. Maybe if it's not a cartoon. Just saying. That might help. Because they don't sponsor anime either. They don't sponsor Comic-Cons. Maybe they want something serious. Maybe have some deals on, Coca-Cola, for example, has, sports drinks. Say you're the official sports drink of the PBA. Put some money in the kitty, right? They got to get outside the box a little bit. They got to think a little bit more. So they need to put more money. Excuse me for that. They got to put more money in the kitty from the top, but also at the bottom, and they've got to teach the game better in the bottom levels. And I just don't see it happening as much. You're also seeing a lot of bowling alleys struggling now because the game is disintegrating. I worry about that. I worry about that a lot. I bowled at a place called Country Club Lanes down in eastern Baltimore County, Maryland. That place had like 70, 80 lanes, if I remember correctly. We had guys from the professional tour bowled in leagues there. The guys that owned Hammer originally owned that bowling alley. The days of the individual are dying. Like we're moving towards corporate ownership again. Okay. To in some areas where if you're having to sell out to Brunswicker, for example, but at the same time, those same companies used to have bowling. There used to be fair lanes. Brunswick had a lot of houses. Now those houses are becoming independents, right? Isn't that weird? But the guys owning the bowling alleys are getting to the point where they almost have to sell out. And some of them have, and some of the ball manufacturers have had to sell out to the bigger corporations. So it's just there's more money needed in the sector, and like I said, I think social media, not social media. I think what do you call it? Private equity would really help get this thing a little more investable. Get the clown car out of it, and I think you can save the sport. Otherwise, this sport could be gone in 20 or 30 years, and it would break my heart. I really love this sport, and I want it to be around. I would love to hear more about what you might think in the comments section. I can even do a second installment of this if you guys think I've taken just a bloody hatchet to this thing and screwed it up. It is a game I do love. It's not universally adored by people, but I certainly love it anyway. So if you would get more involved with the channel, like, comment, especially comments. So you like, you comment, you subscribe, you hit the ringy dingy, you say all the digital goodness comes your way, and you won't miss a beat. Comes right to your recommendation screen or whatever. And I want you to share it far and as wide as you can for those people who may or may not have the need for pithy athletics kind of commentary like you see here, whether it's of low quality or the occasional mediocrity that I'm able to achieve. It's good for entertainment value. It might teach them a couple things. Would eventually like this to be a community of like-minded people, or slightly like-minded, that can kind of share back and forth. Love to see if you're a coach. I'd love to hear more. Because I think that's the community basis would be really good. It's a small community now. Let's see what we can build. I'll be back next week, hopefully on Monday, and I will bid you adieu with that. I hope you have a great week, and I will talk to you soon. See ya.